Hey, and welcome to the Dead Web Club podcast. My name is Thomas Oskar. In this episode, we're talking to Ashley Good, independent filmmaker, author, occasional podcaster, and in your own words, hella burned out. We talk about burnout, we talk about film festivals, we talk about how you run your own film festival, now that came to be. We talk about her online magazine, and we also touch the topic of online conspiracies. I hope you enjoy the show.
My name is Ashley Good. I am an independent filmmaker, an author, occasional, and hella burnt out.
Thanks for Ashley for coming to this podcast. And normally I ask everyone, like, and when I interview people, what's your first memory of being online? If you have any particular kind of memory, good or bad.
My very first memory of the internet was when, and this will reveal how old I am, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old, and my mom took me to one of her friends' houses, and she said, "Oh, like they have the internet here." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, the internet." They're like, "Yeah, you could search whatever you want." I remember typing in the Spice Girls, and I saw about 30 seconds of lesbian porn before all the adults in the room swarmed the computer and shut that down. So that is my very first experience with the internet.
I think sometimes people forget how wild the 90s internet, 2000 internet is, because now it's full of scams and craziness. But was all this weird and craziness in the early days of the internet also, as I remember.
I have a second better story, if
Okay.
I may. It
Cool.
unfortunately does reveal that there were also scams happening in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I might be confessing to a crime. I don't think it is illegal or was
I
illegal.
think it's a bit like out of, let's say, it's too old now.
Do you remember Neopets?
I remember Neopets. I was never on Neopets, but I remember Neopets.
I was a fairly angsty child, and I remember spending countless hours in the summer. I'd have my 7-Eleven Slurpee, and I'm just hunched over, listening to music and playing Neopets. At one point, I don't quite know what inspired me to do this. As a child, about 10 years old, I assumed everybody else on Neopets was probably older, because I thought, oh, I'm young. So these are all adults playing on Neopets. I couldn't figure out how to win enough games to get the points, to get the paintbrush to paint your pets. Any fellow olds listening will know what I'm talking about. I've only told this to one other person, but I'm bringing this up now because it's funny. I still feel kind of guilty. I made a fake landing page that looked like the Neopet login screen. My logic was if adults will fall for this, surely they deserve this. Anyway, I had a phishing scam on Neopets. They eventually blocked my account. Very disappointed. And that's how I taught myself HTML.
I think a lot of people, I remember learning HTML, this is like MySpace days, but I remember learning coding and stuff because of that. And then somehow we all kind of forgot about it. And then we had to relearn it.
Did you also experience quite a bit of disappointment when Dreamweaver came out and you realized you no longer really had to code? That's kind of when I gave up.
I don't know. It was kind of like I brushed with HTML, like a time where you could code like in Notepad. Then Dreamweaver came out, and I think there was like this Adobe had some kind of Adobe bought Dreamweaver, I think, after a while. I've It's a bit fuzzy those days because I was also doing stuff with Microsoft Publisher in '97. I have like a vague memory of Dreamweaver, and then I think my interest kind of, because it became too complicated or too much busy work, I slightly regret it because it would be beneficial to know. So kind of, because there would always be like a kind of similar to now. It would be like a new program or new service or something coming out that would be like, now you don't need to code anymore. The hype cycle of now everyone's going to code. Now you don't need to code. And now we've got Squarespace, and then you don't need Squarespace because we got this other thing going on. And then now I see I'm getting ads now, but like you don't need to code, outsource it. You can just get AI to generate you an app or marketplace or whatever. I'm getting like 2, 3 companies a day promoting this. And then you have the hype cycle, it peaks and then crashes and burns and acquisitions and all that stuff.
Just put this chip in your brain and AI will think for you.
Yes, I don't have any original idea anymore. I can just steal it and then flip it around, palette swapping.
We used GeoCity back in the day. Did it have the drag and drop functionality?
Oh, I remember at that time I was into gaming, so I had a Quake Doom fan page. It was probably existing at that time. It's such a fuzzy memory. I think I even had an Angel Fire site, but it was more like experiments. You put it out there, it doesn't go anywhere, and then I had a fake gaming clan or something. The brain of a 10-year-old is kind of fuzzy, what you remember or not.
I think the GeoCities website builder might have planted the early breadcrumbs that's made me a bit more of a conspiracy theorist because they say the government lets us know about a certain amount of technology and they're 20 years ahead of what's publicly available. I remember GeoCities having a drag and drop website builder. This was like early 2000s, late 90s. I didn't see that functionality replicated again in the public for probably another like almost decade after that. I remember thinking, wait, we have this technology. It was pretty smooth and it worked easily. Now we have Squarespace and they charge like $500 a year, but yeah.
I don't remember them having, the human memory. There's probably another future podcast, but I know that human memory is selective. I don't remember this, but I do know other services had they developed a drag and drop feature. They had like an in-service website builder. I know some other services had it, but yeah, I don't know too much about it. Something to look into. If I find information, I'll put it in the show notes so people can check it out. But maybe like a question, because I know like you done so many things recently. You had film festivals, and you had or either you have or ongoing or did the podcast, and you had like a online magazine. That correctly? How would you describe House of Fog?
House of Fog was an online magazine spin-off of the Foggy Film Festival that I'd hosted for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I need to preface and tell the audience I live in Canada and I moved from one province to another. When I left my last home, I could no longer host the Foggy Film Festival in person. So I thought, how do I keep these relationships going with the filmmakers I've made internationally? How do I keep the brand kind of alive? For a good year, we had articles and photo shoots and everything that were in the same tone as the Foggy Film Festival, which was like darkly comedic, exploring different social themes, kind of creative horror films. We had an online magazine brand centered around that. But ultimately, it was just really difficult when you're working with volunteers, it can be really difficult to get them to send in the pieces that they said they were going to and stuff. I was dealing with my own burnout, and then I just kind of dropped the ball. Lately, I've been doing Substack articles exploring themes like nostalgia and the dead internet theory. So I'm still writing, but the House of Fog brand is sadly deceased.
So it was your decision to continue the House of Fog as your own thing, kind of beyond the film festival. Then was that your own decision to do it, or was it more like I want a project now because I'm moving to another province? And
It was a bit of both. Like yourself, I always need a project on the go. I am happiest when I'm busiest, but unfortunately, that does lead to burnout and stuff. Being a relatively new mom, it can be a lot to juggle all of the projects and everything. I remember hosting a Comic-Con panel in Victoria when I was 3 months postpartum, and I didn't even write a script. I was on stage, and I don't know how I got through that, and I wish I had video proof, but the one thing I did forget was to press the power button on my camera to record it. So that was the one thing I forgot, but did get through it. On the Foggy Film Festival, though, it was my baby. It wasn't started by another arts organization or anything like that. So I had the freedom to do it whatever I wanted with it. It was entirely self-funded.
I have this kind of self-created pressure of like I gotta keep it going, and I have an audience, have fans or people who support it. I don't want to let them down somehow. You find the pressure or internal idea that I have this audience, I gotta keep this thing going, maybe more for them than yourself. Or how did you feel like keeping this project going while you were dealing with your moving and child and being a mom, and you said the way into burnout.
I mean, that was definitely part of it. You don't want to let people down. And especially, people get so excited when you're doing something, they want to be involved. So when something fun is happening, You're like, yeah, keep it going. People love enthusiasm and don't want it to stop. But sometimes you, as the person in charge, you, as the creative, you, as a human, have to take a step back and think, okay, but what's truly best for me and my health in this time? Because as I'm learning, I mean, your health is the most important thing any of us have.
Mm.
It's not our ego, it's not our projects, it's our health. And if you don't have that, then you can't really do anything else.
So with the internet now, you have like, people would like be approach you to social media and you kind of either like get validation through it or maybe critique from it. So how do you feel running a film festival and dealing with other aspects of that and creating a community? Because you said you did it over a couple of years, the film festival, or
No, it was 5 years. It
wow.
ran from 2019 until 2023. We had 3 in-person shows and 2 online because of the pandemic.
So how do you feel
The
the, the influence of the internet on something like this, like the organizing and where did you get the films from? Was that through your network or was that people submitting it?
the films were selected entirely based on submissions. I did reach out to a few people specifically to have them submit their projects, but I did have a viewing jury. We would watch everything and discuss what was going to get programmed. Because of the internet, we were able to attract films from all around the world. We actually had some that had some pretty big names. One film had Will Ferrell in it. And the festival did pretty well, and it could have grown into something larger, but I was just too tired.
And was there anyone who was like, I know some projects kind of live on because I was part of a concert organization back in my hometown, and then it became a point where nearly everyone left, and then you had this project that somebody wants to take, and then somebody did take it in the end, but it didn't last too long because a lot of the original energy and contacts and all of the stuff kind of disappeared by kind of our group when we left it. So did you ever
That
think about like handing it over to someone else, or was it more like this is kind of my project and I want to move it to another place?
I had considered it, but I preferred to take the George Costanza route and just go out on top. I've been involved in too many other projects where somebody else takes over and it's just never the same.
Mm,
And I'm not trying to sound egotistical, but the Foggy Film Festival, it was my brain baby. You know, it was me and my voice that made it what it was. And
mm,
that's not to say I think I'm an incredible person. I think anybody else could do this too. It's just the branding, the style, the messages, the ironic film scheduling all came from me. I will say regarding the ironic film scheduling, my jury ended up saying they needed to have absolute veto powers if I tried to do this again, but I still think it was the best decision I ever made. In our first in-person show, I deliberately put a really sad and heartbreaking film after a long stretch of quite hilarious films. It was a
mm,
beautiful one. It was about famine and war in Afghanistan, and I wanted people to get the message. And I'm like, "Oh, I know how I can do this," because 'cause they'd never go to their way to watch this film on their own.
mm.
So I put it after a stretch of comedies and people are watching, and it felt like somebody vacuumed the energy out of the room. It was incredible. I was sitting in the back, I'm like, "I love this." Maybe I'm slightly sadistic with regards to that. 3 quarters through, the audience, some of them started laughing uncomfortably because they didn't know what to do. The lineup continued and went back into more dark comedies. At the end of the festival, I had multiple people come up to me and tell me that that was their favorite moment and how much they actually love that filmmaker and his work
Mm.
because it got them to sit through and deeply consider a piece they wouldn't usually have watched.
Yeah, I don't have that example, but I know like there's sometimes music festivals you will have like certain style out of the blue. You throw in like an experimental band out of the blue, and it's either a practical joke or it's done as a way to be like we would take the genre now and push it to the pure limit
Yeah,
of what it could.
exactly. The dark film that I showed did have an ironic twist at the end, and I still think it fit with the overall
Mm,
theme. Programming a film festival is a lot like making a set list.
mm. Because I mean, like, there's a lot of film festival at the moment, and I'm just thinking about like, you think about the internet, how that kind of, because before it used to be like you got to know a guy and send the tape to them or show up at some guy's door with your tape and show it. Changed the change the aspect of doing film festival because you maybe have access now to more films than without the internet. That was maybe like a we're not in '70s anymore at all. The amount of films now and what's being created was also influenced a lot by the internet, how it could be distributed, shown.
It's frustrating because there's so much noise and
Mm,
there's so much garbage. That goes for films and the festivals.
mm,
There are festivals that are just money grabbing scams.
mm,
I say, as the reformed Neopets hacker, there are so many garbage films because everybody has a phone in their pocket. They can, in theory, shoot through a movie. While I think everybody should create, I don't think everybody should create films. There's so much that goes into it. Ideally, you have a solid script. You have to have actors that, if they're not perfect or have no experience, maybe you cast them in a role more true to their real personality so they give a more believable performance. You don't have your next door neighbor, Susan, playing because you couldn't find anyone else. There are so many little things that you have to get right in order to make a halfway decent indie film.
mm,
And yeah, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And
mm.
I don't think my things are masterpieces at all. I guess hosting the film festival and everything, I'm more of the camp of those that can't do teach. I think I'm much better at giving advice. That's not to say I'm not proud of my work, but if you watch it,
I mean, like,
you get what I mean.
everyone can be in a band, but a lot of people can move the gear around, find our way.
Everyone can hit a drum, but you can't necessarily hit to the proper rhythm.
You talk about both now in the podcast about burnout, also in our previous communication about stuff. You feel that? I mean, it's a hypothetical question. Would you feel like you still would have maybe if the internet wasn't there, you still feel you probably would have gone through that, overload yourself as like personality thing? I think it's like the internet is part of, because I know a lot of people have burnouts now. Is that, do you think it's influenced by the internet or maybe increased by it, or more like our own like interests and question, I guess, internet? Is it the internet the burnout highway or something?
That's an excellent question. I've never considered it, and I think you're absolutely right. I have one of those brains that if I had unlimited resources and unlimited cans of Red Bull, I would have 1,000 projects on the go
Mm,
because of the internet. But if I didn't have the internet, I would be limited to working with what's around me and what's in my community. The internet, I mean, I'm talking to you and you're on the other side of the world right now.
yeah.
We wouldn't both be podcasters and authors and writers and everything without the internet. We'd probably just have picked one.
It's quite valid as my own impression of things. But also, I think the sale about the unlimited monkeys riding a typewriter make Shakespeare, but I think it will be a really lackluster version of Shakespeare in the end if you are diluting
Yeah.
your energy to multiple ideas.
Yeah, it's like with AI. It could, in theory, write a novel like that, but the novel's going to be hot garbage. You need to have that human dedication, that human focus, and human experience behind what you're creating.
Yeah, I have the question about AI. I don't want for the audience, I don't want this to be like the AI critique podcast because there's too many of those now. So you can find them in your other list about critiquing the AI symptom. But I do feel like it's kind of like this thing where there's a new thing happening and then it increases. It's kind of like when there's a new quote unquote opportunity online that people be like, oh, now I don't need to I don't need to do YouTube videos. I can get AI to generate a YouTube video like more people would do it, but I will be creating more. There's already a lot of terrible YouTube videos, but we need now AI generated shit YouTube videos. But it's a bit like a self-professing machine kind of deal where you have a new thing and it creates more of the same shittier version of a previous thing.
The worst thing, and it's so frustrating right now because I feel like I have very few forms of entertainment left that haven't been ruined for me by modern culture and technology. But like some of the YouTubers I had been enjoying listening to, they are totally using AI to write their scripts now. My brain's really good with patterns, so I hear these cadences. I'm like, oh my God, they use ChatGPT to write their scripts. I can almost hear the M dashes in their language, and it's so infuriating because I'm like, there's nothing left to enjoy. I don't want to listen to AI tell me how to not be burnt out. I want a person that has lived that experience tell me. You know what I mean?
I think that the most peak of horribleness of this now, like I getting AI generated ads about mental health. Like it kind of makes sense if I am a psychopath. I don't want money, so I'm going to generate a YouTube channel about mental health, but I will use AI avatars to show how I can work. It's just my brain kind of wrapped around that idea.
Yeah, it would be so easy for us to make those AI videos and pump out the content and get paid by YouTube, but it feels so soulless. I just can't.
Maybe because I could probably be a horrible guy if I didn't have a soul and I just wanted money and pump up endless bullshit.
Like, I'm sure we'd both have a lot more money if that was our mindset.
Yeah, I just saw now there was this, like you would generate. You're not interested in even the topic. You're just in for the money or fame or whatever. So whatever would generate you revenue, that's the thing you will pump your energy into. And you don't need to believe or have any interest or agency in the message, even like just whatever gives views.
I know you said you don't want this to turn into an AI critique, so I'll try to keep this short. But the thing that horrifies me is people using ChatGPT as a therapist. I understand that a lot of therapy is ideally your therapist will mirror your behavior and help you to work through ideas, but ChatGPT, yes, ands everything you say. It doesn't matter how outlandish it is. As you know, they learn by scouring the internet and absorbing everything. But the more AI content that's out there, the more they're learning from themselves, and it's kind of making ChatGPT schizophrenic. So if you're using an unstable AI as a therapist, like there's no way this ends well. I predict it actually is going to be so much worse for us than social media ever was. And also all of the noise that AI creates. It's going to drown out small businesses, it's going to drown out independent artists, and we're just going to be fed the same slop that we were fed in the mainstream media prior to the invention of the internet. It's like how streaming was supposed to do away with cable, but now streaming has just become cable because people will have up to 10 different providers and it's just as much money. It's very frustrating because the whole reason I'm drawn to like the vaporwave genre, as I know you are as well, is that it touches on the kind of fake nostalgia we have, the nostalgia that us 90s and 2000s kids have for the future that was promised to us that never materialized. The internet was supposed to bring about a way for everybody to get their art into the world, for small businesses to succeed, for freedom of speech to reach whoever wants to hear it. But it was only like that for maybe 5 years, and then they started putting limitations on it. So, yeah, bringing a vaporwave because there's a sadness with modern society, and it's going to get worse as AI becomes more prevalent.
Yeah, it's like a social melancholy. But I'm also
Yeah.
But I'm also sometimes like have to catch myself to say that, there's always kind of like the nostalgia of the past. I see a lot of dangers in it because people now already like the Gen Z kids is nostalgic about, the 90s or something. And I remember the early 90s internet being a cool place, but I also remember pretty horrible shit there. And it was no filters. And it was like, yeah, it's not like Instagram, TikTok doom scrolling, but you had a lot of horrible shit there. So I also find a bit like it's kind of it's more like a ongoing version of what's already been there, but maybe a larger version of something before. Like I had a discussion with someone about films, and you have the superhero bubble, we'll call it that. But you also had the fall of grace in the 70s and new American cinema. And you have a bit of the cycle of hype bubbles, whatever. Like you have a it's a thing and then it crashes and burns because all the money goes out. Nobody wants to do it anymore. And I feel like this is ongoing versions of something that's happened before somehow.
You're very right. And ultimately, a lot of it does come down to capitalism. I'm not saying that as a pro or negative in any way. I'm saying that as a neutral statement about capitalism. Bear with me. I'm going to try to get my thoughts here because you said a lot. No, there's nothing new.
Mm.
Like you're mentioning the cinema. And that's true. I predict after all of these Marvel movies Maybe people will eventually get sick of them. Maybe there will be a resurgence of independent filmmakers. There's always waves
Mm,
like feminism, because with any time there's a social change, you push forward, then you push back a bit. You push forward, you push back.
mm,
Like that's just how things grow and develop. And because of capitalism, right now it feels AI is profitable. So that's going to be pushed. When AI is no longer profitable, they will find something else that they will push, and technology will shift in that direction. The reason I say it's been going on for as long as we can really track is I recently found out that, so I need to preface by saying that I've been reading a lot of woo woo spirituality type books. I've been reading some of the subreddits on those topics, even though I believe most of the internet is dead and much of what I'm reading are comments made by bots. A bunch of the comments led me to do some searching, and apparently, these trends like Gnosticism and Hermeticism actually were quite popular in the early 1800s and then again in the 1920s. And it almost seems like there's a 100 to 120-year cycle of people getting into spirituality with the same talking points. These things just keep repeating on a much larger scale than the trends we see with fashion. So there really is nothing new under the sun. It's like humanity is doomed to just keep repeating itself in loops until we reach whatever our version of perfection is.
mm.
Does that make sense?
No, it all makes sense. I remember I got into a rabbit hole with like, bear with me here. I will check hauntology, if you know this hauntology, like media.
Yeah, book you recommended before.
And then there was this thing where, like in the 19th century, like 18th century, the people were seeing ghosts everywhere. And then there's a lot of analogy where people would see ghosts, but they were really just seeing technology developing and they didn't really know how to experience it. Like a new lamppost getting installed or something. Now I see like a lot of stuff online. People are really getting into ghosts again, about like the like ghost spirits, hauntings, and talking boxes. So you have people like exploring ghost haunting through technology, having technological device to talk to the dead. And I just
Yeah.
find it's like the modern sci-fi version of what they would think in the 18th century.
And that's why I like,
Mm,
I'll say old horror films. I'm not really into the new stuff. I hate torture porn.
mm,
But that's why I like the old stuff, because it did offer these cultural critiques. Zombie movies were about consumerism. That's pretty much what all of them were, not so subtly trying to address. When you talk about people seeing ghosts and everything, there just does seem to be an innate tie to, I mean, people fear what they don't know.
mm.
So it makes sense that there's a link between the unknown and horror.
People want to experience or talk about the topic, but don't really know how, so they will do it to like a medium or media.
And and that's why free speech is so important. Even if there are awful people out there, I'd rather know who the assholes are, so let them talk. It's why freedom of speech is so important, because people need to feel empowered to ask questions about things they don't understand. And maybe they aren't the most eloquent, or they don't know how to ask things. So as long as people are afraid to ask questions about things they don't understand, they're just going to be pushed to be more bigoted. Internet, when it was open and free, I think was going to create a better society than one that is so shut down and siloed. That's almost one of the benefits of being an early adopter of the internet. Since I was a preteen, I've grown up submerged in internet culture, for better or worse. I grew up seeing the hateful rhetoric that people spew in the dark corners of the internet. Because I saw that, I've grown up knowing what to look out for, aware of what some people can be like, and I've kind of learned how to have these conversations to change people's minds ideally. I guess I'm just better at navigating the world because of that. Do I wish I had not seen, gifs of people dying randomly on the early days of Reddit? Yeah, I wish I didn't see that. But I'm not upset when Sydney Sweeney looks hot in a new pair of jeans. Like it's a complicated topic.
Yeah, I mean, you
Internet is, you take the good, but I would rather take the good with the bad and have freedom of speech and the ability to change minds versus a sterilized entirely capitalistic hellscape where there's silence, because when there's silence, you can't change minds.
It's another point that comes up in another conversation I had, how there's a point where people went from like online forums where you have a nickname and you went on a Facebook group, and suddenly the, the person who helped you with finding a new camera lens suddenly was maybe a bigot asshole, and now his name is James, and you know where the guy lives.
It's tough. I do think we know too much about everybody. I would much rather know less about some of my distant relatives and cousins that post on Facebook. If you're an optimist, you're probably going to view other people on the internet behind their anonymous names as somebody just like you. And if you're a little bit more cynical, you're probably going to think, I bet you that guy's got 10 other accounts and he's a bigot. I've always tried to have conversations with people that were different from myself. I like different opinions. I like humoring different ideas. And I don't like being told what I should or shouldn't be reading or looking at. To expand on that, I mentioned kind of woo-woo stuff earlier. Right now, I'm currently living in a small town that's actually pretty religious. That, again, not me making a statement one way or another, but it can feel stifling. I know when I move back to my old city, it's going to feel better because I'll be around different, more like-minded people. And it's kind of like that with the internet. If you find yourself siloed somewhere, it can be stifling and you just shut down and stop having conversations. But if you're allowed to surf the World Wide Web, then you're more apt to find your own niche and your own community.
Yeah, I was going back to some old sites I used to hang out like a few years ago, and they were like, if it was still up, it would be a ghost town. Communities move around a bit online. Do you feel like maybe if you go a bit like versus old internet, quote unquote old internet, like now is more, I have a feeling that people want to move back into having different places to hang out, because we had a period where we all should be on the same platforms. Now you have growing diversity again with places to hang out online. How do you feel like that can maybe influence your own experience, maybe your own opinions about that? Like when you go from a uniform place to like different, we find different niches and communities online again. I feel like there's like a growing interest.
It's tough to say. Yes, we have more social media networks.
Mm.
Off the top of my head, there's X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, which is super left wing, and Truth Social, which is super right wing. I'm a Canadian, so I don't know. And then there's Thread or something. I'm old. Anyway, we have more options, but I don't think many people are deviating out of those echo chambers. Everybody's pretty firmly siloed at this point. I would like there to be a shift back to the open days of the internet, but I'm not really optimistic with regards to that. I know for myself, when my current smartphone finally dies, I'm honestly probably going to get a dumb phone. I'm just tired. My old, burnt out brain needs a little break.
Yeah, I have like a lot of friends who like just too many apps. You got people and connections to too many different apps, and it's kind of hard to follow
Yeah,
away people.
I went on a little rant at an unsuspecting and undeserving cashier the other day when she tried to get me to sign up for the app at the grocery store. I was just like, no more apps, please. And she's like, but you save money. I'm like, yes, I know I can save money. I can collect points. I don't want to look at my phone again if I don't have to. Just please stop. I swear, Thomas, I'm a year away from starting a paper zine. That's where I'm at.
No, there's been a lot of uptick in scenes. People are interested into scenes. People want to have a slow, a slow footage, a slow media.
We'll start a zine together.
Who knows what comes around the next corner about the media. No, I do find like there's like you had a moment where people were like printing the web, content from online, put it on print. That kind of like is a whole. There's a lot of stuff out there if you look for it. A lot of people. What do you think is like? Oh, I have the only person with this idea, and you can find a whole group of people who are definitely into the scenes. There's whole like
Yeah.
scene festivals and stuff going on.
If there's anybody that knows anything about archiving data, it's going to be you.
I know way more people that have way more knowledge about this than me. I'm a healthy novice in this. But it's kind of like you can be the best wizard in the village, but there's always a better village next door. So you gotta combine forces and spread the word.
We just all need to be the best versions of us that we can be.
Yeah, it's the Hollywood, by the power of friendship.
You know?
Maybe. What's currently happening now, like with your projects? You got a Substack going on?
I know right now, though, I haven't been making a whole lot of films recently. Maybe I'll get back into it one day. My first love, though, has always been writing. I joke that I'm a better writer than a speaker. And I started a new Substack. It's just ashleygood.substack.com. My newsletter is called The Musings of an Indie D-Lister, which I think is kind of an apt description, if I may be so self-deprecating.
I mean, just thanks for coming on the podcast and ranting and talking to me about everything from film festivals and internet.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. It was fun to have this conversation to tap into that part of my brain again.